Let us continue to study the suffering of sickness in the human realm. The suffering of sickness. The human body is fundamentally composed of the four elements. When the four elements that constitute our body fall out of balance, various illnesses arise, such as those caused by wind, bile, and phlegm, bringing with them sensations of pain and suffering. According to tantras related to Tibetan medicine, since beginningless time, our three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance have led to the three fundamental illnesses of wind, bile, and phlegm. Regarding the number of illnesses, some Buddhist scriptures indicate 84,000, while others state 404. For example, the treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom says, Prajnaparamita can also dispel 84,000 illnesses. There are 21,000 types of illnesses caused by lust, 21,000 types of illnesses caused by hatred, 21,000 types of illnesses caused by ignorance, and 21,000 types of illnesses caused by similar factors. The Great Canon of Monastic Rules states, there are 404 types of illnesses. Illnesses of wind consist of 101 types. Illnesses of fire consist of 101 types. Illnesses of water consist of 101 types. And other illnesses consist of 101 types. Regarding the causes of illnesses, Chinese medicine categorizes them into three groups. 1. External causes, which include the 6 pathogenic factors: wind, cold, summer heat, dampness, dryness, and fire. 2. Internal causes, comprising the 7 emotional factors: joy, anger, worry, overthinking, sadness, fear, and being startled. 3. Causes that are neither external nor internal, such as improper diet, accidents, and injuries caused by animals. These factors correspond to the 3 pathogenic elements mentioned in the Golden Light Sutra. The sutra also states, when the 4 great elements and all sense organs have weakened metabolism, one contracts all diseases. Consequently, traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine, and Tibetan medicine offer different descriptions and analyses regarding the origins, nature, and associated suffering of diseases. From a Buddhist perspective, some illnesses arise from harmful actions toward other living beings in previous lives, while others are induced by seasonal changes and imbalances in the 4 great elements. In terms of treatment, some illnesses can be cured through medication or by reciting the mantras of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, while others remain incurable. The World Health Organization has identified approximately 17,000 human illnesses. Of these, only 1/3 can be effectively treated, while the remainder have no known cure in modern medicine. Therefore, it is quite common for a patient's disease to be incurable, regardless of the hospital visited, the doctor consulted, or the medication taken. However, even if your disease is incurable, there is no need to feel particularly distressed, because the resolution of a disease depends on 2 types of causes: remote causes and proximate causes. In this context, remote causes refer to negative actions arising from the 3 poisons in your previous life or lives, or even countless kalpas ago, which have been stored in the alaya consciousness and manifest as disease in this life. Proximate causes refer to imbalances in your body's wind, bile, and phlegm, resulting in various diseases that damage both body and mind. Therefore, when you suffer from illnesses caused by imbalances in the 4 great elements, it is crucial to examine and contemplate the law of causes and effects. This in itself is a practice. With such a state of practice, whether you face physical or mental suffering, obstacles in practice, or hardships in life, you can remain composed and undisturbed. Without this practice, it is nearly impossible to eliminate the suffering of illness by relying solely on external factors like medical procedures and medications. Moreover, Even if a patient fervently prays for the blessings of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, this may not have an immediate effect on their illness if they carry heavy karmic debts. Even the Buddha could not directly help some severely ill patients who were dying, except by bestowing blessings. Of course, there are also many instances where fortunate patients recovered from illness through the blessings of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or eminent masters. Therefore, we should analyze these cases individually. What exactly happens after a person falls ill? When we fall ill, everything changes in an instant. No matter how young, strong, or healthy we appear, even the slightest pain can bring us down completely. Like a bird struck mid-flight, we lose all our strength and collapse. Just getting out of bed feels like an enormous effort, and every small movement becomes a challenge. Even a headache, a cold, heartburn, or discomfort in the liver can sap your strength and courage, not to mention the impact of severe diseases. Recently, I visited an esteemed master who was once in good health, but is now very ill. His condition illustrates that illnesses are truly devastating, something I felt deeply when I saw him. In the face of particularly severe diseases, it is indeed challenging for ordinary people to cope. Unless they are individuals of exceptionally high spiritual attainment who can transform everything into a path of practice. Nevertheless, even those with the highest level of realization, including Buddha Shakyamuni, also appear to experience birth, old age, sickness, and death. Therefore, we must understand these truths in Buddhism and genuinely resonate with them in our minds. Being sick can drain all our energy, making even simple tasks like answering a question feel exhausting. We speak in a weak, barely audible voice. Regardless of how we position ourselves, on our side, back, or stomach, comfort remains elusive. We lose any desire to eat or drink, and sleep becomes difficult to attain. The days drag on endlessly, and the nights feel unbearably long. Some patients are overly delicate in their approach to illness. Their conditions may not be serious, yet they exaggerate their ailments, causing those around them to feel worried and anxious. If you ask such a person to work, they will cite ill health to avoid the task. However, if you ask them to eat, they will open their eyes and devour the food with enthusiasm. The Buddha extensively explained the suffering of sickness in the sutras, which we should be mindful of. If you have not learned these teachings, it will be challenging to face the suffering of illness when it arises. Only by thoroughly understanding the Mahayana teachings and gaining genuine benefit from them will you be able to clearly comprehend the suffering of sickness and manage it with ease. Therefore, it is crucial for everyone to understand the fundamental nature of human existence. Without this understanding, you will find it difficult to practice the Dharma. When we are sick, we often lose our appetite for food and drink. Even though we may be reluctant, we must endure various unpleasant treatments, from taking bitter, hot, or sour medicines to undergoing procedures like bloodletting and cauterization. During my medical stay in Xiamen, I had to undergo a procedure called the small needle knife every day, during which small needles were inserted into my spinal column. Each time a needle was inserted, it felt as though it went directly into my bone marrow, and I could not help but let out an "ah" sound. As a result, I chose to have my treatment alone during each visit to the doctor. I did not want to bring anyone with me because I feared they would remember my timidity during the treatment, even long after I was cured. The audience laughs. Later, while receiving inpatient care in Chengdu, I also underwent several of these procedures. Although I was very reluctant, I had no choice but to accept the treatment in order to recover quickly. Thus, everything in samsara has the nature of suffering. We should all deeply contemplate this and strive to put it into long-term practice. Only in this way, when illness befalls us, can we face suffering with ease and calm, and even transform illness into a path of enlightenment. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma says the suffering of sickness harms one's life. Illnesses are the heralds of the Lord of Death. All living beings experience this suffering, and the suffering is beyond verbal description. Indeed, the suffering of sickness is unbearable, although we do not feel it when we are healthy. When we unfortunately become ill and go to a hospital, we realize that both we and others are experiencing the excruciating pain of sickness. Therefore, the best place for practitioners to recognize the suffering of sickness is in a hospital. I once saw an elderly man in his 80s in a Chengdu hospital who insisted on being operated on by the doctor. The doctor shook his head and refused, saying, "Your physical condition is poor, so it is better not to have the operation. Just go back home and rest." But the old man protested, "I must have the operation. I must live to 90 years old." Although I was not a doctor but merely a bystander, given the old man's physical appearance, I felt there was little hope for his recovery. However, he remained hopeful and expected to live for a long time. In comparison, we practitioners can handle such situations much better than worldly people. Falling ill can instill fear in us, especially when we worry it might lead to death. Overwhelmed by negative thoughts and losing our sense of stability, we may lose control of our body and mind. This can further distort our perception, leading to hallucinations. In extreme cases, some may even choose to end their own lives. In fact, we humans endure various sufferings of sickness, which are often connected to negative actions committed in previous lives. For instance, if you struck a living being's head in a past life, you may frequently experience headaches in this life that medication cannot alleviate. If you harmed a specific body part of a living being in a previous life, when the karmic effect manifests in this life, you will feel similar pain in the corresponding part of your own body. Therefore, the Sutra on Cause and Effect states that a short lifespan results from killing living beings, and that chronic illness stems from harming them. The Dhammapada recounts a story about an old monk. The old monk had been ill for a long time and received no care from others, becoming filthy and foul-smelling. The Buddha noticed him and brought 5 monks to visit the old monk at his residence. Upon seeing the filth and mess in his room, all the monks covered their noses and frowned, eager to leave as soon as possible. The Buddha, however, asked Indra to bring some fragrant warm water and personally cleaned the sick monk's body. The Sangha asked the Buddha why he did this. The Buddha replied, "Sick beings are very pitiable, and we should take care of them. This will generate great merit and virtue. Additionally, this old monk had a karmic connection with me in a past life. Back then, he was an executioner who used to whip prisoners so harshly that they suffered greatly. I was falsely accused at that time, and before being whipped, I told the executioner I was innocent and asked him for mercy. He listened and refrained from whipping me during the execution. Later, when he died, his misdeeds led him to a lower realm where he suffered for many kalpas. Even though he was reborn as a human in this life, he was continually plagued by a grave illness. Therefore, while we are still alive, we must repent for our past misdeeds of harming other living beings in previous and current lives. Otherwise, we may face lifetimes of unceasing illness. The fact that some individuals are chronically ill and cannot be cured by either Chinese or Western medicine is undoubtedly related to their karmas from past lives. Although the karmic effect is self-inflicted, seriously ill patients are nonetheless very pitiable. In the past, those with illnesses such as leprosy or epilepsy were often shunned by those around them, left to face their struggles alone. Though they were still alive, their existence felt no different from death. In 1986, the great Jigme Phuntsuk Rinpoche visited many Tibetan areas to propagate the Dharma. In Dawu County, he encountered a group of leprosy patients and performed a puja for them. They appeared almost as lifeless as the deceased, except that they could still move around. Recently, I read the book Times Gone by Cheng Shangyang. The author holds only a junior high school diploma, yet he has been collecting data on AIDS for over 10 years. Drawing from his own experiences, he documented the tragedies of the AIDS village in Henan province. In the book, the author describes the number of villagers who contracted AIDS, including his wife and 17 immediate family members, some of whom have already passed away. He provides a candid portrayal of the tragic situation. I spoke with him on the phone, and during our conversation, he emphasized that outsiders have no understanding of the true suffering in the AIDS village. While attending the International Philanthropy Forum, I also met a volunteer who offered medical treatment to the villagers. I was invited to visit the AIDS village, which I agreed to do. However, due to scheduling conflicts, I had to cancel the trip. I asked some Dharma friends in Beijing to visit and assist the villagers on my behalf. Patients with terminal illnesses may sometimes feel hopeless and desperate. However, if you're a practitioner, you should strive to face illness with composure and calm. When your test results are available and the doctor tells you, "Oh, you need neither medicine nor inpatient care, you may go home," or "It is fine, nothing is wrong with you," it may indicate that you are terminally ill. Therefore, after receiving your test reports, you should also observe the doctor's facial expression. If he asks you to go home first and then requests a meeting with your family, there may be something amiss. At that point, you might want to eavesdrop on their conversation. The audience laughs. When people are sick, they often struggle to take care of themselves. Their frustration with their illness makes them irritable, leading them to complain about everything others do for them. Over time, they can become increasingly demanding and difficult to please. If their illness persists, those caring for them may grow weary and stop responding to their requests. Meanwhile, the ongoing discomfort of their condition continues to trouble them. Once there was such a patient at Larungar. The Dharma teachers and monastery overseers organized a team to take turns caring for him, but he was constantly bad-tempered. Many Dharma friends grew weary of looking after him, and some even became frustrated and stopped attending to his needs. Of course, a caregiver should understand that a patient may become irritable due to the discomfort caused by an imbalance of the four elements. However, the patient should not become overly demanding. I heard of a patient who requested 3 or 4 dishes per meal, which can be challenging for a caregiver. In fact, one is quite fortunate to have someone willing to care for them when they are sick. As a patient, you should avoid making excessive demands. Otherwise, your caregiver may become frustrated and will not be able to continue looking after you with the same patience. When we fall ill, we should be like those Kadampa masters who aspire to take on the suffering of sickness for the benefit of all living beings. For a true practitioner, being sick can be a valuable opportunity to put illness into real practice. The more severe the illness and the greater the pain, the more successful his practice will be. In contrast, if a patient is an average individual or an inexperienced practitioner, they may inadvertently create difficulties for those around them. A bedridden patient who constantly requires assistance might even wish for an early death to avoid burdening their family. In summary, we must recognize that patients continually endure the suffering of sickness, both physically and mentally. Many patients deeply comprehend this from their own experiences. If you wish to explore the suffering of sickness further, you may consult other Buddhist texts, such as the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma, the Precious Garland of the Middle Way, and the Way of the Bodhisattva, which provide more detailed explanations. The suffering of death. When death is near, you become too weak to leave your bed, unable even to sit up. Food and drink no longer interest you, no matter how delicious they appear. The process of dying overwhelms you with discomfort, draining your spirit and leaving you anxious and hopeless. Your mind fills with unsettling visions and fears of what lies ahead. I once read an article written by a graduate student who said he used to be an optimist, but his reflections on death had eroded his optimism. He believed he would be gone forever after death, and that all his current happiness would vanish as well, which left him feeling extremely frightened and depressed. Meanwhile, he realized that his grandparents and parents would die sooner or later, and that no one could escape death. Whenever he contemplated this, he felt deep sadness, but he could not stop thinking about it. So he asked, "Who in the world can dispel my worry and suffering?" I really want to tell him, had you studied the Dharma, you would have known that consciousness does not disappear after death. Instead, it wanders from life to life in samsara according to your good and bad actions. Of course, he is doing relatively well because at least he has the courage to confront death, unlike many people who shy away from the topic and immediately change the subject. Unfortunately, the graduate student has not been exposed to the Dharma, so I fear that when he ultimately faces death, he will not be able to dispel his fear. The moment of your passing has arrived. Surrounded by family and friends, you may feel their love, but no one can delay your time of death. Ultimately, the pain of dying is something you confront entirely on your own. As stated in the Way of the Bodhisattva, there I will be prostrate upon my bed, and all around my family and friends, but I alone shall be the one to feel the cutting of the thread of life. At the moment of death, even the guru with thousands of disciples, or the president of a country with hundreds of millions of people, will have to face the suffering of death alone. No one can replace them in that experience. The Infinite Life Sutra states, in the midst of worldly desires and attachments, one is born alone and dies alone. One goes alone and comes alone. Others cannot assist you in your sickness, let alone during your birth and death. I have observed government officials with prestige and power being transported in luxury cars to the hospital for inpatient care. However, once hospitalized, only a few bodyguards remained to help them with luggage, bags, and laptops. Beyond that, no one could experience the suffering of illness on their behalf. If this is true during illness, it will be even more so at the time of death. No matter how much you own, you cannot take any of it with you when you die. Even though you struggle to let go, deep down, you know it is impossible to hold on. As stated in the Way of the Bodhisattva, and when the heralds of the deadly king have gripped me, what help to me will be my friends and kin. When the heralds of the deadly king come to capture you, no matter how abundant and powerful your friends and family may be, they cannot help you. Therefore, while we are still alive, we must strive to perform virtuous deeds and avoid becoming attached to friends, family, status, and wealth, which ultimately hold no meaning. You may have heard this often during your study of the Dharma, but if you have not internalized it, it will remain just a literal statement that does not resonate with you. Only on the day of your death will you finally realize that you cannot take your possessions with you, and that your family and friends cannot aid you. At most, They will mourn for 2 or 3 days after your passing and organize a funeral for you. However, once your physical body is gone, their grief will eventually fade. I watched a documentary about the remarkable life of former Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. He received numerous awards from around the world, including the Nobel Peace Prize in 1994. In his 60s, Arafat married a woman 34 years his junior. However, his wife showed little care for him during their marriage, choosing to live an extravagant life alone in France. When Arafat's health deteriorated, his wife insisted on sending him from the Palestinian city of Ramallah to France for medical treatment. Arafat later died in a military hospital in a suburb of Paris. The documentary footage revealed that when Arafat was on the brink of death, his senior Palestinian officials could do nothing but let medical staff resuscitate him. Nurses provided oxygen and chest compressions in hopes of reviving his heartbeat, but their efforts were in vain. As death approaches, fear grips you at the thought of the pain and suffering in the lower realms. Regret floods your mind as you recall the wrongdoings you have committed. Death is suddenly here, as the original vows of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra states. The henchmen of impermanence come unexpectedly. You feel consumed by fear as the warmth of life fades, your senses dull, and your body gradually grows cold. However, some practitioners are truly remarkable. As I mentioned before, there was an old lama at Lorun Gar who was ill, so I took him to the hospital in Barkham for a medical checkup. The doctor examined his test results and informed me that the old lama had reached the terminal stage of lung cancer. The old lama did not understand Chinese, but from the doctor's expression, he sensed what was happening. He asked me, "What did the doctor say?" I replied, "Nothing special. You are fine. Perhaps some Chinese medicine can make you feel better." He said, "Really? For us practitioners, death is nothing to worry about. Just tell me the truth." On our way back to Lorun Gar, I still did not tell him, but he had already guessed correctly. His reaction was completely different from that of ordinary people. He remained calm and showed no emotional fluctuations. An ordinary person would have been devastated and heartbroken by the same news, feeling as though their life prospects had vanished like soap bubbles. As an evildoer faces death, fear grips them as they recall their wrongdoings and dread the possibility of being reborn in the lower realms. They feel deep regret for having squandered the chance to practice the Dharma, the only thing that could have helped them in this crucial moment. This realization fills them with such anguish that they clutch their chest in despair, leaving marks on their skin with their own fingernails. I once witnessed the death of such a person. He had enjoyed hunting and had killed many animals in his life. Now, he appeared horrified before his death, yelling, "I have killed so many living beings. Now they are all here wanting to take my life." Hearing his words, we were all horrified. Milarepa once spoke about the death of an evildoer. Watch as an evil man dies. He serves as a teacher, demonstrating the effects of actions. Indeed, you do not necessarily need a guru to teach you daily from the words of my perfect teacher or the Sutra of 100 Actions. If a wise person witnesses the horror of an evildoer's death, he will deeply understand that one must not commit too many misdeeds in life. Otherwise, the suffering of death in this life is unbearable, let alone the suffering of falling into the lower realms in a future life. For an evildoer, the torment of the lower realms begins even before death. Everything around them feels threatening, and every sensation brings pain. Their body weakens as its elements break down. Their breathing becomes labored, their limbs grow lifeless, and their mind begins to hallucinate. Their eyes roll back, and as they leave this life, they face death alone. In the intermediate state, frightening visions appear, but they have no one to turn to for help or protection. When their family and friends notice their death, they will start to recite Om Mani Padme Hum while weeping. Of course, each of us must confront the suffering of death. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma states, humans are constrained by death. From this life to the next life, death is the great suffering. When a practitioner, who has the state of practice, notices the signs of approaching death, such as the dissolution of the four elements and the arising of hallucinations, he will recall the tantric instructions on the intermediate state. He will be aware of how the four elements degenerate and dissolve into consciousness in sequential order. Having gained understanding and prepared for the moment of death, the practitioner can seize the opportunity and attain liberation when the signs of death manifest. Here is an analogy. If you ask an honest man who is about to travel to deliver an oral message, he will keep the message firmly in mind. Similarly, when we are about to leave this world for the next, the key instructions from the Guru will naturally arise in our minds. Here's another analogy. A person is about to take a train to a new destination. Having never been on a train before, his parents tell him, when you arrive at the train station, do this or that to obtain a ticket, board the train, and find your seat. Having received these instructions in advance, this person will remember his parents' words as the situations arise one by one. Therefore, while we are still alive, we should keep in mind the instructions from qualified teachers. Then, as the signs of death emerge, we'll recognize them and engage in the corresponding practices. Regarding practices related to death, the Pure Land School has supreme instructions centered around the practice of Amitabha, with few instructions offered about the intermediate state. However, beings differ in their faculties, so at the moment of death, what appears before them may not necessarily be Amitabha. In contrast, Vajrayana provides various instructions on the intermediate state that cater to people with different faculties. Learning these instructions while still alive can greatly assist a person at the moment of death. Otherwise, when the heralds of the King of Death arrive and the apparitions of the intermediate state manifest, those who have never practiced these instructions will have no choice but to leave this world alone, without any protector or refuge. Of course, enlightened beings are fundamentally different from worldly individuals, as they have attained mastery over birth and death. For example, Master Bao Fu, a Chan master in the later Tang dynasty, once told his disciples, "I have been feeling weak recently, and I think my time of death is approaching." Upon hearing this, the disciples became anxious. Some said, "Dear Master, you are still in good health. Please don't worry too much." Others pleaded, "Please continue living in this world so you can guide us." Some exclaimed, "Please take care of yourself so you can live long in this world to teach the Dharma." In an instant, the temple was filled with the noise of the crowd. While the disciples were still talking, one disciple suddenly said, "It is all right to live. It is all right to die. It's all right to just let it be as it is." Hearing this, Master Bao Fu burst into laughter and said with contentment, "When did you overhear the thoughts in my mind?" Then the Chan master peacefully passed into parinirvana. Thus, an enlightened being is not constrained by afflictions, so whenever death arrives, he has no fear. However, for most of us ordinary people, there's no certainty that today will not be the day we leave this life behind, taking nothing with us. When that moment comes, only the Dharma can truly help us. There is no other refuge. As the saying goes, while still in your mother's womb, direct your mind toward the Dharma. From the moment of birth, keep the Dharma in mind for death. We must always remember and practice the Dharma, which is best started when we are still in our mother's womb. People nowadays place great importance on fetal education, which refers to various practices and activities aimed at stimulating the development of a fetus during pregnancy. Most fetal education involves listening to soft music or visiting pleasant places, which does not carry much meaning. In fact, the fetal education that is truly meaningful is when a pregnant mother frequently visits temples or engages in virtuous actions after conceiving. These external virtuous causes and conditions can greatly benefit a fetus. Additionally, once a child enters this world, they should also be introduced to the principle of impermanence. They should understand that death can come without warning, whether one is young or old, and in that final moment, only the Dharma will truly be of help. The Samyukta Agama says, "Old age and death will destroy our body and sensations. Only the merits of generosity are the accumulations that follow us." Therefore, the Buddha often says that it is our merit that can assist us at the moment of our death. Shantideva also states, "For then life's virtue is my one defense, and this, alas, is what I shrugged away." However, many worldly individuals are unaware of this. In particular, many urban dwellers are preoccupied with life's daily tasks and procrastinate on the most meaningful Dharma practice. To these individuals, the most meaningful practice appears trivial, while trivial pursuits are viewed as ultimately important. They seem to forget about death because they are so focused on competing with others, helping their friends, managing their homes and possessions, and spending time with loved ones. However, living this way, driven by attachment, ignorance, and anger for the sake of those they care about, can, upon reflection, be a serious mistake. Here is an inspiring verse from the Dhammapada. "Our lifetime is gone day and night, so we shall practice diligently in time. Knowing the truth in this worldly life is impermanence. Do not be deceived and fall into darkness." Therefore, now that we have the opportunity to study the Dharma, we must recognize that guidance from a qualified teacher is more important than anything else. An unschooled child remains illiterate without education. Thus, formal schooling is essential for this child. Similarly, living in a world of delusion, we will leave this life as Dharma illiterate if we do not pursue the Dharma. Now that we have encountered the luminous Dharma that teaches us what to do and what not to do, we must choose to engage in the most meaningful actions so we can attain great bliss in this life and in many lives yet to come. By doing so, when we face death, we will reflect on our entire life and realize, although I committed many misdeeds in the past, I have managed to accomplish some virtuous acts during the second half of my life. I recognized my mistakes while there was still time, so it is all right if I have to die now. I will be happy whenever I must leave this world. This is the mindset of a practitioner, detaching oneself from worldly attachments such as material gain, loss, fame, and status, among others. In this way, when departing from this world, having accumulated numerous virtuous deeds for liberation, the practitioner can feel confident and assured about their next life. You should contemplate these teachings repeatedly, as this in itself is meditation. I have emphasized that meditation practice on the common preliminaries is very important. I hope you keep this advice close to your heart.